3 hours she'd been asking the same 4 words. Nobody slowed their step. Across the corridor, a man washed plates and said nothing. Behind his ear ran a scar, the exact shape of hers.
She's been alone for hours. She keeps asking people something, and nobody's answering.
Mrs. Ashwood knows we're her daughter. Our job's the event. Keep the floor clear.
Each face she tried, her hands got a fraction smaller. 400 people. Not one turned toward her.
He'd had a daughter once. 7 years, every word there was, and still he couldn't make them see her. Not once. Not twice.
3 hours. That was how long the little girl in the blue dress had been signing the same 4 words to a room full of people who would not look at her. Her small hands rose and fell, patient at first, then desperate, then slow, the way a candle gutters when the wax is nearly gone. "Can anybody see me?" Over and over, to the waiters, to the women in silk, to the men laughing near the champagne. Nobody signed back. Nobody even slowed their step. She was 5 years old, and she was standing in the middle of the brightest ballroom in the city, and she was completely, perfectly alone. Across the corridor, past 2 swinging doors, a man stood at a steel sink with his sleeves pushed to the elbow and steam fogging the wire mesh over the window. He washed plates. He said nothing to anyone. And behind his left ear, half hidden under damp gray-flecked hair, ran a thin, curved scar, the exact shape of the scar that ran behind the little girl's ear too. Neither of them knew the other existed. Not yet. If the ones the world walks past are the ones you find yourself thinking about long after they are gone, then stay with me a while. This is one of those stories, and it only asks a few quiet minutes of you. The gala was thrown by Ashwood Holdings, and the whole thing belonged to Vivienne Ashwood, who had built the company out of nothing and now stood at the top of a marble staircase in a gown the color of deep water. There were 400 guests. There was a string quartet and a silent auction, and a banner that read, "Building Futures" in gold letters 10 feet wide. Every table had been counted, every glass polished twice, every detail measured against Vivienne's own exacting eye. She had thought of everything except the one small person she had brought with her and then, in the crush of the evening, quietly lost track of. That person was her daughter, Sofia. Profoundly deaf since birth, Sofia signed the way other children breathed, fast, fluent, full of questions. But nobody in that ballroom of 400 people spoke her language. The babysitter had canceled at 6 o'clock, and so Sofia had been settled into a side room off the main hall with a coloring book and a promise that Mama would be back soon. Soon had come and gone many times. The crayons had rolled off the folding chair one by one. The promise had begun to feel, to a 5-year-old, like a word that did not mean anything after all. The events manager was a lean, tidy man named Grant, who wore an earpiece and carried a clipboard, and believed that a smooth evening was one in which nothing unexpected occurred. A child wandering the floor, tugging sleeves, making shapes with her hands that unsettled the donors. That was unexpected. So each time Sofia drifted out among the guests, Grant appeared as if from nowhere, took her gently but firmly by the shoulders, and steered her back toward the side room. Not unkind, just efficient. To Grant, the girl was a variable to be managed, and he managed her. Once, early in the night, he had crouched to her level to turn her around, and she had looked up at him with such open, hopeful searching that something in his chest had shifted. For half a second, he had almost stayed down there. He did not know a single sign. He would not have known what to do with the moment, even if he had taken it. So he stood back up, and he told himself the donors were waiting, and he steered her through the door and pulled it nearly closed. He was a man who had learned, somewhere along the way, that the easiest thing to do with a feeling was to schedule around it. There was one person on the staff who could not stop watching that door. Her name was Naomi. She was 22, a junior coordinator 3 weeks into the only real job she had ever held, and she had noticed the little girl in the first hour, noticed the signing, noticed that the child's eyes kept searching faces and finding nothing. Naomi did not know sign language, but she knew what it looked like when a person was reaching for someone and coming back empty every time. She had spent a good part of her own childhood reaching like that, in foster homes where the grown-ups change too often to learn your name. It is not a thing you forget the shape of. In the kitchen, the man at the sink worked without hurry. His name was Elias. He had been hired that morning through an agency, one night only, to wash dishes and clear plates and stay out of sight, the sort of hire nobody learns the name of. He was 51. He had a way of standing very still, of reading the room through the small window in the door that the other kitchen hands found faintly unnerving and could not have explained. He kept to himself. He liked the warmth of the water and the honest weight of a clean plate and the fact that no one required him to speak. He worked the way a man works who has learned that steady hands can hold a life together when nothing else will. What none of them knew was that Elias had once had a daughter of his own. Her name was Maya, and she had been born deaf, and he had learned her language before she was 2, so that no silence would ever grow between them. He learned it clumsily, then fluently, then so completely that he dreamed in it. For 7 years his hands and hers had carried on a conversation the rest of the world never heard. And then a fever took her over one long February, and the conversation stopped. And Elias came out the other side of that winter, a man who spoke very little to anyone, in any language at all. He carried one more thing. Elias himself had lost most of his hearing at 19, and behind his ear was the old surgical scar to prove it, a curved white line from a device fitted long ago and long since set aside. He lived in a hush that other people would have called loneliness, and that he had simply learned to call home. He had taken this dishwashing job because the rent was due, and the agency paid the same night, in cash, at the back door when the last plate was dried. He had counted it in his head on the bus that morning, enough for the room he owed, a little more for the week's bread and the fare back, and then counted it again, to be sure it would cover what he owed. He had not expected the evening to ask anything of him but plates. Out in the side room, Sofia had given up the crayons. She stood in the doorway, one hand on the frame, watching the bright river of people flow past. She was not a shy child. At home she talked constantly, hands flying, and her mother's assistants had learned enough to keep up, and the world had always answered her before. So she did the brave and reasonable thing. She let go of the doorframe and walked out into the crowd to find someone who would say hello back. The first was a waiter with a tray of little glasses. She touched his elbow and lifted her hands. "Excuse me, can you see me?" He glanced down, said something quick with a distracted smile, and was 3 steps gone before her hands had finished the question. She turned to a woman in green with earrings that caught the light, and she signed it again, more carefully this time, in case she had gone too fast. The woman's eyes slid over her the way eyes slide over a coat rack, and then went back to her conversation. Sofia's hands lowered a little, but she was not done yet. She tried a man with silver hair who reminded her of nobody in particular, and he stepped around her without ever registering that she was a person and not an obstacle. She tried a young couple, laughing, close together, and they laughed at something else entirely and moved on. Each time, her signing got a fraction smaller. Each time, the space between her question and the empty air after it got a fraction longer. Hope is a physical thing in a small body. You can watch it fade. By the 6th face, she was no longer walking up to people so much as offering herself to them and being declined, and something in her posture had begun to fold. Naomi saw all of it from across the floor, and she could not stand it any longer. She crossed to Grant, who was checking his watch against the auction schedule, and she said, quietly, "The little girl. She's been alone for hours. Somebody should sit with her. She's frightened. She keeps asking people something and nobody's answering." Grant did not look up from his clipboard. "Mrs. Ashwood knows where her daughter is. Our job is the event. Keep the floor clear." That was the first time Naomi objected. It cost her nothing yet, and it changed nothing at all, and she went back to her station with her jaw tight and her hands cold. But she did not go far. She stationed herself where she could see the child, and she watched, and she waited for a reason braver than the one she had just been refused. Sofia wandered further out this time, deeper into the crowd, and the signing had changed. It was smaller now, held close to her chest, The way you hold something you are ashamed to still be asking for. Can anybody see me? Her eyes were wet, but she was not crying. She was too busy searching, and a searching child does not yet know to weep. She turned in a slow circle in the middle of all that light and noise she could not hear. 400 people close enough to touch, and not one face turned toward her. It was the shape of her hands that reached Elias first. He had stepped out of the kitchen with a rack of clean glasses balanced against his hip, meaning only to set them at the service station and go back to his sink. He stopped so hard that the glasses chimed against each other. Across the room, over the heads of the guests, a little girl was signing, and she was not signing to anyone. She was signing to the air, to the room, to no one. The last thing you do before you stop believing anyone is coming. Can anybody see me? The rack went very heavy in his arms. For one terrible moment, it was not the ballroom he was standing in, but a February hospital corridor, and it was not Sofia's hands he was watching, but Maya's, small and certain, forming a question he had spent the rest of his life unable to answer. Papa, she had signed once, years before the fever, after a birthday party where the other children would not play with her. Papa, why doesn't anyone want to talk to me? And Elias, who had learned every sign there was, had knelt down and opened his hands and found that he had none. He had held her instead. He had never forgiven himself for having nothing to say. He set the glasses down on the service station and told himself it was not his business. He was the dishwasher. He had been told in so many words to stay out of sight. There was a manager for the floor and a mother somewhere in the building, and 400 people better dressed and better placed than he was to cross that room and kneel down. He picked the rack back up. He took one step toward the kitchen. That was the easy thing, and he was a man who had made a home out of easy things, out of hush and distance and not being needed. He got his hand on the swinging door. Then he looked back. She was still turning in her slow circle. Her hands had dropped almost to her sides now, still moving, but barely, the way lips move when a person has stopped expecting to be heard and simply cannot make themselves stop asking. And Elias thought of Maya in the hospital corridor, and of how the world had looked away from her, gently, politely, its whole life long, and of how he had had 7 years and every word there was, and still could not make them see her. Not once. And then he thought, with a clarity that steadied his shaking hands, a thing so simple, it hardly needed words at all. Not twice. Naomi had seen the girl drift out again too, and she went to her, knelt beside her, took her hand, tried with her whole clumsy kindness to lead her back toward the quiet room, where at least she would not be trampled. Sofia went, because she was tired, because a warm hand was better than none. And that was when Grant arrived, sharp-heeled and low-voiced, and told Naomi to leave the child and return to her post. Naomi stood up and said the thing that would nearly cost her everything. "No," she said. "Look at her. She's been asking for help for 3 hours, and every single one of us has walked past her. I won't do it again. Somebody needs to help this child." The words carried farther than she meant them to. A few heads turned. Grant's face went pale and precise, and he stepped in close so that no guest would hear. And what he said very quietly. "You've been here 3 weeks. You will lower your voice. You will return to your station, and you will not embarrass Mrs. Ashwood in her own house. Say one more word, and you can collect your things tonight. Is that understood?" That was the second time Naomi objected, and this time it cost her. She felt the job, the first real one, the rent, the whole thin ledge she was standing on, tilt under her feet. She thought of the little she had in her account and the month still ahead of it. Her eyes stung, but she did not move away from the child. She stayed kneeling, one hand still around Sofia's small fingers, and she looked up at Grant, and she did not lower her gaze. None of them had noticed the dishwasher crossing the floor. Elias walked past Grant, as if the man were not there. He knelt down on the polished floor in front of the little girl in the blue dress, in his wet apron, with his scarred hands, and he lifted them where she could see, and slowly, plainly, so there could be no mistaking it, Elias signed 4 words. "I can see you." For a moment, Sofia only stared. Her hands hung motionless in the air. She had asked the question so many times, to so many faces, that an answer no longer seemed like a thing that could actually happen. And now here it was, kneeling in front of her, wearing an apron and a scar, speaking to her in the only language she had. Her mouth opened. Her whole small body went still with the shock of being answered. Then she signed back, fast, disbelieving, her hands trembling. "You can see me? You can understand me?" Elias nodded. His own hands were not quite steady. "I can," he signed. "I understand every word. I have been listening to you all night from behind that door." And then, because it was true, and because no one had said it to her all evening, "I am sorry it took so long." Sofia burst into tears, not the frightened, held-in tears of a lost child, but the great flooding tears of relief, of a dam giving way. And in the same instant, she began to sign so quickly he could barely follow, everything she had been carrying for 3 hours pouring out of her hands at once. "My name is Sofia. I couldn't find Mama. I said hello to everyone, and nobody said hello back. I thought I was invisible. I thought maybe I wasn't really here." "You are here," Elias signed. His thumb flexed against his palm. An old habit, the way another man might grip the arm of a chair. "You are very much here. I am Elias, and your hands talk beautifully, faster than mine. Look, you are already ahead of me." She laughed. It was the first laugh she had made all night, and it came out crooked and wet and astonished, and a few of the nearest guests turned at the sound of it. "Slow down," he signed, smiling now himself. "My old hands cannot keep up with a fast girl. Tell me one thing at a time." She wiped her face with the back of her wrist and signed, more carefully, "What is your favorite color?" And Elias considered it, as gravely as if she had asked him the meaning of his life, and answered, "Blue, like your dress." For the first time all evening, a whole cluster of people were looking directly at the little deaf girl who had begged them to. Elias did not hurry. He let her cry and laugh and pour herself out, and he answered every sign, and for a little while, he let the room be nothing but the two of them and the space between their hands. Grant reached them then, his voice tight and low, already reaching for the child's shoulder in the old practiced way. Sir, you can't be out here. This is not your place. Your kitchen staff. You need to return to..." But his hand never landed. Sofia had shifted, without thinking, to put the kneeling man between herself and the manager, and Elias did not so much as look up. He kept his eyes on the child. He kept answering her hands with his, and Grant, for the second time that night, felt the thing in his chest shift and refused to schedule itself away. He looked at the girl's face, truly looked, the way he had not let himself look before, and he saw what he had been steering back through that door all evening. His hand, still half raised, lowered slowly to his side. He did not know what to do with what he was feeling, so he simply stood there, and for once he managed nothing at all. At the top of the marble stairs, Vivienne Ashwood had felt the room's attention turn the way a sailor feels the wind change. She followed it down the staircase, across the floor, to the small knot of stillness at its center, and she saw her daughter's face, brighter than she had seen it in weeks, and she saw a stranger she did not recognize kneeling before her. She began to move, but she did not rush the last of the way. Something in the sight stopped her a few feet short, and she stood, and she watched her own child having a conversation she herself had never once been able to give her. Among the guests near the front stood an elderly woman in soft gray, a longtime board member named Ruth Callahan, who had spent 40 years teaching at a school for deaf children before Ashwood's foundation had ever existed. She had been watching the man's hands with the particular hunger of someone hearing her mother tongue spoken in a foreign country. And as Elias turned his head to follow Sofia's pointing finger, the light caught the curved white scar behind his ear, and Ruth's own hand went to her mouth. "Look at him," she said, loud enough now for the whole hushed circle to hear. "Look behind his ear. He's had the surgery himself. He's one of them." Her voice broke a little, and she said no more than that, and she did not need to. She simply pointed, and let the crowd's silence do the rest. The words went through the crowd like a stone dropped in still water. People who had walked past the dishwasher all night, who had handed him their dirty plates without a glance, turned now and truly looked at him, at the scar, at the hands, at the tears he was not bothering to hide, and little Sofia, who had understood Ruth not at all, understood something else entirely. She had seen where the old woman pointed. She reached up with one small hand and touched, very gently, the scar behind Elias's ear. Then she touched the very same place behind her own, the twin of it, the mark of her own device. The curved line she had been told made her different from everyone she knew. Her hands came up, slow and wondering. "You have one too, like mine. We're the same. We are the same," Elias signed, and his composure finally left him, and the tears came down freely into the creases of a face that had not wept where anyone could see it in 7 years. "I have had mine since before you were born, little one. You are not broken and you are not invisible. You are one of the most alive people in this whole enormous room. You were the loudest thing here tonight. It only took an old fool with soap on his hands to hear you." That was when Vivienne closed the last of the distance. She knelt down on the marble in her deep-water gown, and for a long moment, the woman who commanded 400 people could not command her own voice. She had seen the last of it, the child touching the scar, the 2 matching marks, the stranger weeping. She had heard Ruth's words, and she looked at her daughter's radiant, tear-streaked, finally seen face, and she understood, all at once and all the way down, exactly how many hours that face had spent searching a room that held her own mother. "Sofia," she whispered, and then, uselessly, because she did not know how to say it with her hands, she had always meant to learn. There had always been a next month for it. She pressed her fingers to her lips and reached them out toward her daughter. Sofia looked at her mother. Then she looked at Elias, and she signed, to him, not to her. "Tell Mama I was calling her all night." Elias hesitated. Then he turned to Vivienne, and in a low, rough voice, the first words most of the room had heard him speak, he said them aloud. "She says she was calling you all night." He paused, and let that stand a moment before he went on. "She has been asking one thing since the party began. She has been asking whether anybody could see her." Vivienne's face broke. The bracelet on her wrist trembled as she lifted her hands and tried, awkwardly, to shape something her daughter would know. She managed only the sign for sorry, a fist circled over the heart, the one sign she did know, the one she had learned years ago and never built upon. She circled it again and again, her polished composure gone, a mother on her knees now too. Sofia crawled into her arms, and Vivienne held her the way you hold something you very nearly lost through your own carelessness, and have been given back by a grace you did not earn. They stayed like that for a while, and the room let them. Nobody clapped. Nobody spoke. 400 people who had spent an evening not seeing a child stood in the strange, cleansing quiet of finally seeing her, and the quiet did more than any speech from the marble stairs could have done. Elias got to his feet and stepped back, meaning to give the mother and daughter the floor, meaning quietly to return to the only place in the building where he knew what was expected of him. But the night was not finished asking things of him yet. It was later, when Sofia had stopped crying and was showing her mother the coloring book she had abandoned hours before, that Vivienne rose and looked for Grant. She found him at the edge of the gathering, clipboard forgotten against his leg. She did not raise her voice. She walked to him, and the warmth she had shown her daughter went out of her face like a lamp turned down. "How many times tonight was my daughter brought back to that side room?" she asked. He swallowed. "Several," he said. There was no fight in him now. "Several times. I told myself the floor needed to stay clear." He stopped, and then, because the thing in his chest would not schedule itself away any longer, he said the truer thing. "She looked up at me. Early on, I saw her face, and I turned her around anyway. I don't have a reason that will sound like one." "No," Vivienne said. "You don't." She let that sit between them, and it was heavier than any dismissal. "You managed everything tonight, Grant, except the only thing that mattered. Go home. We'll speak on Monday about whether managing people is work you should be doing at all." She did not destroy him. She simply let him carry the weight of what he had chosen, which was worse, and he gathered his things and went out through the tall doors alone. Then she turned to the young woman who had not turned away. Naomi, she crossed to her. You objected twice, when it cost you everything to do it, and you were right both times. You saw my daughter when I did not. When the man who threatened your job asked you to walk away, you stayed on your knees beside a frightened child. I couldn't do anything for her, Naomi said, low. I don't even know how to talk to her. I just knew I couldn't leave. That, Vivienne said, is the whole of it. Anyone can learn the words. Not everyone stops walking. She drew a breath. On Monday, you will not be a junior coordinator anymore. You will be building the program I should have built the day Sofia was born. Training every person in this company to speak to my daughter, and to every guest we will ever host who is like her. You will lead it, and I will pay you as though I understand what I owe you, because I am beginning to. Naomi's careful face crumpled at last, and she pressed her hand over her mouth and nodded, unable to speak, vindicated in front of the very people who had watched her nearly fall. Then Vivienne came to Elias, who was already glancing toward the kitchen, uncomfortable now that the storm of attention had swung toward him. She stopped in front of him, and in front of 400 people, the founder of Ashwood Holdings inclined her head to the man who washed the dishes. I don't know your name, she said. Elias, he answered. Elias, she said it as if learning it were the most important thing she would do that night. You have a child of your own who signs? Something crossed his face, like a shadow over water. I had, he said, a daughter, Maya. She was deaf, like Sofia. She asked me once why no one would talk to her, and I couldn't fix it for her, and then a fever took her when she was 7, and I never got the chance to try again. He looked down at Sofia, who was watching his hands out of habit even now. When I saw your girl asking the same question tonight, I thought, I couldn't answer it once, when it was mine to answer. I wasn't going to walk past it twice. There was not a sound in the circle around them. Vivienne stood very still, letting his words be what they were, not reaching to make them prettier. Then she said, I would like to offer you a great deal more than a night's dishwashing. A place here, real work, and no more back doors. She stopped, and her voice dropped from the founder's register into something plainer. But first, I would like you to teach me how to say good morning to my own daughter, tonight, before we leave this room. Will you show me? Elias almost smiled. It sat strangely on his out-of-practice face, but it was real. He lifted his hands, and Vivienne watched, and clumsily, laughing at herself, weeping at herself, she copied him. He was patient with her the way he had once been patient with a 2-year-old, turning her fingers a little, showing her again, saying nothing about the fact that a grown woman was learning her own child's language 5 years late. And Sofia, seeing her mother's hands finally reaching for her in her own language, let out a sound of pure delight and signed it back, and her mother signed it again, and the two of them passed the small phrase between them until it stopped being a lesson and became simply a mother and a daughter saying good morning to each other for the first time. It is easy, in a room full of important people, to decide who matters by what they are wearing and where they are standing. We do it without noticing. We did it all evening, 400 of us, to a 5-year-old girl who was shouting with everything she had. And the truth we nearly missed is a simple one, plain enough for a child's hands to spell. You never truly know who is standing in front of you. The dishwasher may be the only one in the room who can hear. The person you are steering out of sight may be the one who matters most. So look at people, all of them. Look at the ones the room walks past, and treat every single one as though they carry a whole world inside them, because every one of them does. Elias did not go back to the sink that night. He was found, an hour later, sitting cross-legged on the marble floor with Sofia in his lap and a ring of guests gathered around, teaching a 5-year-old and her mother and old Ruth Callahan and anyone else who wanted to learn how to say, I see you, with their hands. Naomi sat among them, already filling a page with notes for a program that did not exist yet, and soon would. Grant had gone home to sit with the thing he had chosen, and somewhere in the middle of it, watching a child laugh in a language he had once feared he would never have a reason to speak again, Elias felt the long February in his chest give At last, a little. He never did answer Maya's question. Some questions you don't get to answer. You only get to carry them, and to make sure the next child who asks it hears something back. That night, 4 words did what 7 years of silence could not, and a little girl who had spent 3 hours asking whether anybody could see her fell asleep in the car on the way home, certain, for the first time in her small life, that somebody could. These stories are made with love, for the overlooked ones and for everyone who chooses to see them. If this one stayed with you, subscribe, and keep looking a little closer at the people the world walks past. That is all I ask.